Trump's Justice Department has confessed to lying to a federal appeals court in a case specifically about deploying U.S. troops on American soil. And we're going to unpack that today. Anytime you hear the statement, "We deeply regret the overstatement in our filing," yeah, that's a bad sign. Anytime you have to say something like that to a judge, that's probably not a good sign when you're a lawyer. So we're going to talk about what happened here. This has to do with the deployment of U.S. troops into Portland and the Trump administration relying on inflated, made up, or false numbers to justify what they were doing. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This is Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. If you like this network, if you like our piece here, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button so you can keep up with what we're putting out. Brian, where do we start with this issue? Give us some procedural context about the Portland case.
Before we go to procedure, I just have to quote Bruce Springsteen. Is a dream a lie if it don't come true, or is it something worse?
Yeah.
Can we just use that as our tagline today? Okay, so let's go through the procedure here very quickly. So Judge Immergut, she's a federal district court judge that was appointed by Trump during his first term, ruled several weeks ago that the Oregon National Guard, the California National Guard, the Texas National Guard were improper. She issued a temporary restraining order. She said there was no evidence that they were needed in Portland, and she chastised the Trump administration for that. On October 20th, a three-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit, that's the Court of Appeal, in a 2-1 decision, vacated part of a ruling. They said the California and Texas National Guard, they didn't touch that issue, but they did say the Oregon National Guard needed to be there because there was significant evidence of violence. And then what's going to happen, I'm going to preview it before we deep dive into what we're actually talking about today. Based upon this violence, they issued this order and they said, no, the National Guard can be there. So, but what's happening right away, very soon, is that a 11-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit is going to consider whether or not to further hear the case. They could actually overturn, if they decide to hear the case,
Right.
what this three-judge panel did. So that's called en banc. It's French, en banc. And they're going to make a decision very shortly. But in the meantime, there's been a significant development.
Yeah. So now it turns out, well, and the Trump administration or the Trump's DOJ didn't voluntarily disclose this, but the Oregon Attorney General filed a brief and exposed some of the inaccuracies in the DOJ's briefing on this issue. I'll go over some of them, Brian, and you could talk about it. You know, one of them was that they exaggerated the strain on federal agents because federal agents' jobs being interfered with is a justification for tapping the National Guard. Well, it turns out they exaggerated that. The DOJ claimed that there's daily violent assaults on federal agents. Turns out that's not true. And I know Brian, I don't want to spoil it too much because I know Brian likes to talk about like what they lied about. The size of protests and the degree of violence. You know, the DOJ claimed that there were hundreds of Antifa militants, and just other things about, ICE agents being doxxed and things like that. Turns out none of this is true. Turns out it's all bullshit. Or at best it's exaggerated, but I think it's just bullshit.
Let's go to the
Yeah.
first one. Okay,
Sure.
inflated strain on
Let's dive
federal
into this.
law enforcement resources. Apparently, what they said was that the ICE, DHS, and Border Patrol were severely strained and unable to execute their duties due to, quote, daily violent assaults, forcing the closure of an ICE facility for, quote, extended periods of time, and they needed hundreds of additional personnel. Well, it turns out not true. What did happen is that there were 3 weeks way back in June, like 3 months before this was being heard, where there was a brief escalation where there was maybe 50 protesters.
50 protesters.
Uh-huh,
They
50.
sometimes we've had 50 people in our office down the hall over here. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they cited an alleged need for hundreds of additional personnel to maintain operations, linking it to an ongoing siege-like conditions. So not true. In fact, what happened even after June is that staffing was handled by 20 local officers each night. There were no federal resource shortages noted. And even the federal judge, Immergut, in her ruling, she ruled that their arguments were untethered to the facts. But then they came and made the same allegations in the Court of Appeal, and those justices bought it. They said, okay, well, based on that, there is a significant problem here.
Right.
So, and then, Shant, can I just read and then you comment on what Department of Justice Attorney Roth actually made an argument about, and what he said to the court, sorry, what he actually said to the court.
Sure.
Quote, we deeply regret the overstatement in our declaration regarding resource allegation. It was based on preliminary DHS estimates that were not updated with verified data. Close quote. You want to just dissect what he actually said?
Yeah, we lied. We lied about the information that we gave to the court that the court relied upon. They were not updated with verified data. I mean, that's just saying we lied. We made it up. It's made up information. That's like saying that I'm so happy that I'm playing for the Dodgers, and then you go, hold on, wait a second, you're not playing for the Dodgers. And they go, I'm sorry, I was using unverified information. I
I
mean, that was
went to a
very
Dodger
unverified.
game. Yeah,
Yeah,
I went to a
yeah,
Dodger. And
yeah,
I like the what you have to do, what you have to understand when you've been doing this for a long time is words matter, right? And when
yeah,
he says it was based on preliminary DHS estimates, that's his way of saying it wasn't me. It
yeah.
wasn't me. I'm not the one who made it up. It was someone at DHS made it up. Okay, let's go to the next one, shall
Sure.
we? Okay.
What's the next? What's the next category? The scale of the protests or whatever I said. Yeah.
Yeah, nightly riots, hundreds of Antifa militants. Let me just pause there. I think we need to best point out for people once again, there is no organized Antifa. It isn't like it's like a loose group of people who have a particular belief. And Antifa in itself means anti-fascist, right? Engaging in quote property destruction, fire setting, assaults on officers, knife threats, and paintball attacks. And this was a direct echo from Trump's own September 27th Truth Social posting calling Portland war ravaged. Okay.
Yeah, war
This
ravaged.
was,
Yeah, he said, I want to read the quote. I want to read his quote because it's sort of all of this sort of plays into each other. You just see
yeah.
propaganda at work. I'm directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to war ravaged Portland and any of the ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa. Well, it turns out the attack and the siege were like 50 protesters. So anyway, yeah,
So what
that's
turns out
fun
to be
stuff. Yeah.
true, what actually turns out to be true is that for the 3 months preceding this ruling, there was only an attendance of 20 to 30 protesters a night. And during that 90-day period, there were only 25 arrests, and mostly they were for disorderly conduct, not for violence. There were no fires, there were no bombings, there were no fatalities. No incidents like rock throwing were 2 nights in September. And even the local officials called the gathering small and sedate, handed by city police without federal aid. And then this is the kicker, Shant. The Antifa information that they submitted was a 2020 protest in Portland five
Yeah.
years ago.
I mean, we already know that on social media, the Trump administration and folks in the MAGA camp have been circulating videos of old protests and other incidents and trying to present it as something that's happening today. There isn't Portland is not war ravaged. I mean, I'm a few steps away from getting on a plane and recording an episode from the streets of Portland. I mean, what's it going to take to show that? I mean, it's not war ravaged. There's no evidence of there being any problem or federal agents being interfered with.
So
So
how did the administration, the Department of Justice, and this attorney Roth deal with this? They
he
just
said,
withdrew. They withdrew
yeah,
it.
they
We
withdrew it.
withdraw that
They
portion of
said,
our brief. Yeah.
yeah, we withdraw that portion of our brief, which is just like I'm telling you. When we started at the top, I said, when you make statements like this to a court, or even when you forget the statements, when you do stuff like this, oh, Your Honor, we got to withdraw that portion of our brief. That's like it's bad. I mean, it's you got to be in a desperate position to have to do something like that
I
in
mean,
a
few
really bad.
times in my career have I ever seen anything quite like this. Okay,
Yeah,
should we go to the third one? The overstated Antifa involvement in the threats. Okay,
yeah.
they
These are really good.
yeah, they said that the Rose City Antifa, a loosely affiliated group, had illegally doxed ICE officers and orchestrated a coordinated terrorist siege, justifying the deployment as national security.
What is the
Um,
Rose City Antifa?
well, first of all, it's like the far right tries to characterize Antifa as this terrorist organization. That's actually what Trump did. Trump, in his executive order, referred to them as a terrorist organization. So, what the Department of Justice was trying to do here, Shant, was tie that executive order to Antifa, to a group called Rose City Antifa, which
Okay.
apparently I don't think even exists. Or if it does, it's like a loosely affiliated group. It's not really anybody specific. These are generally young people that are expressing their First Amendment rights. You know, you may not like what they have to say, but they have a right to protest. Okay, so why is this false? First of all, Antifa has no structure. There's no organized structure of Antifa. There's no evidence that ever linked it to doxing, a claim that was based on unverified flyers not attributed to the group. So somebody made it up. Protests were largely peaceful advocacy against ICE policy, and the escalation, which involves one arrest of a conservative influencer named Nick Sortor on October 2nd for disorderly conduct. One arrest, and it was a conservative, unrelated to Antifa. So, what did they say in response to that, Shant? Can we go? Can
They
we go there?
we don't have any corroboration for this in our investigative files. It was included in error from secondary sources. I don't know what that means. Made up. It's made up. It was made up, included in error from secondary sources. Yeah. Brian, I bought you a new. I bought you a new car, Brian. I bought you a new car. I'm going to come over and give you the keys right now. Oh, never mind. That was included in error from secondary sources. There's no new car for you. You know, it's just made up. It's total bullshit.
My last comment on this is maybe these Ninth Circuit judges should start trusting the trial court's findings, because Judge Immergut herself flagged them as bad faith attempts to misrepresent the facts.
Yeah.
That's all I got, Sean.
Yeah, we'll see how this shakes out. I mean, it's an important issue. It's an interesting issue. It's kind of outrageous too. So we'll see how it shakes out, and we'll keep you posted on it. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This has been Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Remember, if you like this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for supporting this network. Share with us your feedback. We love reading it, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.